The idea of Chicago possibly crossing paths again with a familiar face has quietly gained traction inside the league, and it is not hard to understand why this conversation keeps resurfacing. The Bears are entering a phase where competitiveness matters, not just development, and that naturally opens the door to veterans who still have something left to give. Khalil Mack fits that description in a very specific way. He is no longer the dominant every-down force he once was, but his presence, experience, and situational impact remain valuable, especially for a defense that continues to search for consistency on the edge. Mack has made it clear that he is approaching this stage of his career differently than before. At this point, decisions are no longer driven purely by contracts or long-term planning, but by opportunity, timing, and the feeling that a season can truly matter. At 34 years old, with another birthday coming during the season, the margin for chasing championships has narrowed. That reality shapes everything. Joining a rebuilding roster would make little sense unless the motivation was strictly financial, and that does not align with the way he has spoken about his future. What he wants now is a situation where his contributions can directly influence meaningful games. From a football perspective, a return to Chicago would not be about restoring the past version of Khalil Mack. The Bears already have their primary pass rusher, and that role is clearly defined. Instead, the value would come from depth, rotation, and mentorship. Mack understands how to prepare, how to study offenses, and how to survive physically through the grind of a season. For a young edge group that continues to evolve, having a veteran who has seen every possible blocking scheme and offensive adjustment carries real weight. That type of presence cannot be measured solely through sack totals, even with reduced snaps. His recent production shows that there is still effectiveness in his game and limited action due to injury. He continued to create pressure, finish plays behind the line of scrimmage, and force turnovers. Forced fumbles, in particular, remain a calling card of his career, and that skill does not disappear easily. Timing, hand placement, and awareness around the quarterback are traits that often age better than pure speed. In a rotational role, those traits become even more dangerous. The financial aspect, of course, would determine whether this idea becomes realistic. Any agreement would need to be favorable for Chicago, structured around incentives rather than guarantees. A short-term deal that rewards availability and production makes sense for both sides. From the team's perspective, it minimizes risk. From Mack's perspective, it offers a chance to prove that he can still impact winning football while chasing one more meaningful run. That balance is critical, especially when the roster already allocates significant resources to the defensive front. There is also an emotional layer to this discussion that should not be ignored. Mack's time in Chicago remains one of the most impactful stretches of defensive football the franchise has seen in recent years. His debut performance, the energy he brought to the locker room, and the way he transformed the identity of the defense left a lasting impression. For many fans, that era represents belief, relevance, and a defense that could dictate games. A return would not recreate those years, but it would reconnect the present roster with a standard that once existed. While the edge conversation captures attention, the offensive line presents a far more immediate and uncertain challenge. The Bears now face a critical decision at left tackle, and circumstances have forced that decision sooner than expected. Injuries have reshaped the depth chart, removing one promising option from the equation and placing renewed focus onto players with very different profiles. Availability alone has become a factor, but performance under pressure will ultimately decide who earns the trust of the coaching staff. Braxton Jones returns to the picture with experience, but also with questions. Coming off injuries and limited snaps, his physical readiness remains a concern, especially against opponents that rely on power and bull rushes. While he has shown competence in run blocking, his struggles anchoring against strength have been a recurring issue in adverse weather conditions where balance, leverage, and lower body strength are tested on every snap. Those weaknesses become magnified. Rust is another variable that cannot be ignored, particularly this late in the season. On the other side stands Theo Benedict, a player who entered the league without fanfare but steadily carved out a role through availability and effort. He has logged significantly more snaps, faced a wider range of opponents, and endured the physical toll of extended action. That experience matters, even if the production has not been flawless. Penalties have been an issue, and pass protection consistency remains a concern, but his ability to move bodies in the run game provides stability in scenarios where controlling the line of scrimmage becomes the priority. Weather projections only intensify this debate. Harsh conditions typically shift offensive game plans toward the ground, placing increased emphasis on linemen who can generate movement and sustain blocks in those moments. Technique often outweighs raw athleticism. The Bears must weigh immediate reliability against long-term evaluation, understanding that this stretch of games could shape future contract decisions. Whoever earns this opportunity is not just filling a spot for 1 week, but potentially auditioning for his role within the organization moving forward. Beyond the trenches, changes around the league continue to ripple into Chicago's orbit. Coaching movement always creates uncertainty, and emerging names inevitably draw attention from teams seeking offensive leadership. For younger coaches, opportunities to work with established quarterbacks and respected head coaches accelerate development and visibility. When those chances arise, they are difficult to pass up, even if it means leaving a situation where progress is being made. The Bears, like every organization, must remain prepared for that possibility. These shifts do not happen in isolation. They influence roster planning, continuity, and the overall direction of the team. Stability becomes a competitive advantage, but adaptability is just as important. Chicago finds itself at a crossroads where veteran leadership, youth development, and strategic decisions must align. Every move, whether it involves a returning star, a starting left tackle, or a coaching departure, feeds into a larger picture that continues to evolve week by week. As the Bears move deeper into this stretch of meaningful football, the margin for error continues to shrink, and that reality forces uncomfortable but necessary evaluations across the roster. Depth is no longer a luxury, it is a requirement. Especially when injuries begin to test the limits of preparation, this is where experienced players, even those no longer in their physical prime, can shift outcomes in subtle but decisive ways. Leadership in practice, awareness during high-leverage moments, and the ability to recognize offensive tendencies before the snap often separate teams that survive adversity from those that collapse under it. Defensively, Chicago has shown flashes of being disruptive, but consistency remains elusive. Pressure has arrived in waves rather than as a constant presence, and that inconsistency allows opposing quarterbacks to settle into rhythms that are difficult to break once established. Rotational pass rushers who understand how to exploit mismatches become valuable tools in those situations. The goal is not domination on every down, but disruption at the right moments. Third downs, red zone snaps, and late-game drives are often decided by players who know exactly where to be and when to strike. That same principle applies to the offense, where continuity along the line remains one of the most important factors in quarterback development and overall efficiency. Protection issues do not always show up in the box score, but they influence play calling, timing routes, and confidence within the pocket. When a quarterback begins to anticipate pressure that is not there, mechanics suffer and decision-making speeds up unnecessarily. Choosing the right combination up front becomes about minimizing chaos rather than chasing perfection. The current left tackle debate highlights how quickly plans can change. In the National Football League, one moment, a young player appears to be solidifying his role as the future at the position, and the next, an injury removes that option entirely. The physical nature of the position makes durability just as important as talent, and teams are forced to weigh what a player might become against what he can realistically provide right now. That balance is never easy, especially when games still carry postseason implications. For Chicago, this evaluation period extends beyond individual games. It reaches into the offseason and informs how resources will be allocated moving forward. Decisions made under pressure often reveal organizational priorities. Trusting a player who has battled through the season sends a message about resilience and reliability. Turning to a veteran returning from injury signals belief in experience and institutional knowledge. Neither choice is inherently wrong, but each carries consequences that stretch beyond a single matchup. Weather, too, has a way of stripping football down to its fundamentals. When conditions deteriorate, execution becomes more important than creativity. Blocking angles, pad level, and hand placement decide plays that would otherwise rely on speed and spacing. In those environments, teams that can impose their will physically tend to control the tempo. That reality places additional responsibility on the offensive line, turning every snap into a test of discipline and toughness. Meanwhile, the broader league landscape continues to shift, and Chicago is not immune to those movements. Coaching changes elsewhere create ripple effects. opening doors for assistants who have quietly built strong reputations for organizations. Losing a respected coach can disrupt continuity, but it can also create opportunities for internal growth. Promoting from within maintains philosophical alignment and rewards loyalty. Though it also demands confidence in unproven leadership, these transitions often define the identity of a franchise for years to come. What makes this moment particularly compelling for the Bears is the convergence of timelines. Veterans seeking one last meaningful run coexist with young players still defining who they are at the professional level. That mix can either fracture a locker room or strengthen it, depending on how roles are communicated and embraced. Clear expectations matter. Veterans must accept that they are no longer the centerpiece, while younger players must be willing to learn from those who have navigated the league's highs and lows. The front office faces a similar balancing act. Short-term competitiveness cannot come at the expense of long-term stability. Yet ignoring present opportunities risks wasting valuable seasons. Calculated risks, especially on short-term agreements and rotational roles, allow flexibility without compromising the future. These are the types of decisions that rarely make headlines, but often determine whether a team remains relevant year after year. As each week unfolds, performances will clarify debates that currently feel unresolved. Snap counts will reveal trust. Adjustments will expose priorities. And adversity will test depth in ways that preparation alone cannot fully address. For Chicago, this is not just about surviving the next game, but about defining the standards that will carry forward. Every rep, every substitution, and every strategic choice contributes to a larger narrative that is still being written. One that reflects where this franchise believes it truly stands. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Patrick Mahomes has shocked the sports world with a candid reaction to the Chicago Bears, leaving fans and analysts buzzing. The Kansas City quarterback, known for his calm demeanor and measured statements, did not hold back this time, delivering remarks that caught everyone by surprise. Sources close to the team suggest that Mahomes' comments were sparked after reviewing recent game footage and evaluating the Bears' defensive schemes, leading him to voice concerns that are unusually blunt for a player of his stature. It's tough when you see something you respect being handled in a way that just doesn't make sense, Mahomes reportedly said during a private interview. Those snippets of his remarks quickly circulated on social media. While he stopped short of naming individuals, the implication was clear. He criticized the Bears' strategy and execution in ways that suggest frustration, not just casual observation. Analysts are now speculating whether Mahomes' words reflect personal irritation, a strategic warning, or even a subtle message meant for his own team to prepare for upcoming matchups. The timing of Mahomes' statement adds fuel to the fire, with the NFL landscape always shifting and rivalries intensifying. His blunt critique has set off a wave of commentary. Fans on both sides of the spectrum have taken to forums and social platforms, dissecting every word for hidden meaning. Some argue that Mahomes is signaling a competitive edge, using public opinion to influence how opponents perceive his team. Others suggest it could be a calculated move to put pressure on the Bears, or even to fire up Kansas City's locker room with a sense of urgency. Historically, Mahomes has been diplomatic in interviews, so this break from his usual approach is particularly noteworthy. Sports insiders are now questioning whether this marks a new phase in his public persona, a quarterback unafraid to challenge peers and opponents alike, and willing to express critiques that were once considered off-limits. Coaches, commentators, and fans alike are eagerly waiting for follow-up comments, analyzing what this means for the broader NFL narrative. Whether this sparks a response from Chicago or simply remains a talking point among pundits, one thing is certain: Patrick Mahomes has once again reminded everyone why his voice carries weight, both on and off the field. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.